that's why the idea of the radio, the name of the band also, Phonya, phone is the radical saying also sound. So we really like the idea of music with no words, and so that's instrumental music, music with no words that try to generate images for the people.
Hi, this is Rob Reed from Magenta, Cyan, Chimpanzee, Compendium, Kiyama, Sanctuary, and you're watching LiveProg.
Good evening, Bernard. How are you doing?
Good evening, Marcel. Fine, and you? Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to have a chat with me. A few months ago, I had no idea that, well, there was music from a band called Phonya. But my first question is how do you pronounce it?
It's Phonya. Phonya is perfect.
Oh, Phonya.
It's
okay,
perfect.
Okay. At the end of 2023, it was officially announced. But you had been working on your music for about 3 years already. So how did Phonya start?
That could be a very long story because Eric, the guitar player, and myself, we have been friends for more than 35 years now. So we are very old friends. And as you know, we formed a band in the late 90s, which was called Ken's Novel. So I will not start about the story on how we met, because actually with Eric, we met on his wedding's day, which is quite funny, some years ago. But we had this band, Ken's Novel, at the end of the 90s. And you have to understand that Eric and I, we are no professional musicians. Music is really a hobby, and we are quite busy on a professional level. So we cannot dedicate the amount of time that we would like to music. That's an issue. But after Ken's Novel, after I left Ken's Novel, so I played as a hobby for 17 years in a cover band, in a classic rock cover band. And so we made. In 17 years, we made 250 gigs around that number.
That's and
but when Eric and I always kept in contact. And when this band stopped, this cover band stopped, Eric told me, now we should start making music again, because he always wanted to work with me again. And so we started actually working on the first demo in late 2018. But of course, in between, the COVID came. And we stopped seeing each other for 1 year, I would say. And then beginning of 2021, we really started now to work regularly. And then the third member, Gauthier, joined because he was a friend also of Eric working on another project. He listened to the first tracks that we made and said, I really like that, because he had no background in progressive rock, actually. And Gauthier joined, and the fact that we have 3 different backgrounds make it also quite interesting. And so we started working really in 2021, I would say. But the first really track that took shape at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023.
Okay. It's interesting to see that you always kept in touch after all those years.
Yes, indeed.
And the desire to make some music together, and you have 3 different persons, 3 different backgrounds. But how do you write the music together?
So what you hear on the album is mainly the result of demos that Eric have accumulated in the last years. So Eric composes like hell. That's just incredible. He composes really like a flow, but with no preconception of what a track would sound like. So it's like a flow, putting pieces all together. And also we are working with software like Cubase. I suppose you know that. And so he records a lot of things. And the challenge for us is always to say, okay, that part seems interesting, so let's work on that and let's change it. Let's arrange. Let's cut into pieces. Put one part behind the other or before the other, and it's quite tricky to always find the right demo to work on. But Eric has so much material that he accumulated for years that we only have the luxury of the choice to see on what we can work.
There's more material, so hopefully more music. That would be interesting.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. What I noticed is that all 3 of you play keyboards. So with 3 keyboard players, I always wonder, how do you decide who plays what part?
Actually, we have three different approach. Actually, Eric is a guitar player. He's basically a guitar player, but he can hardly compose with guitar, which is quite funny. So he composes a lot with keyboards, but I would say very basic aspects. On my side, so I cannot read music personally. I'm a self-taught musician, so I learn by ear, I learn by myself, but I'm quite good in harmonies, in chords, playing chords, and also in melodies. And Gauthier, the third guy, is a classically trained pianist and he has a perfect pitch. So he has a totally different approach. So when the parts are more complex for the solos, for instance, it's more Gauthier. So that's really a combination of the three backgrounds, which makes it interesting. And also, to give you an idea, I will take the example of the track The Infinite Game, so the last track of the album. If you take the intro, which lasts 4 minutes, Eric composed that intro 15 years ago, and we did not touch a note on it because it was just perfect. But then the melodies of the tracks afterwards were already present, but really not on that way. And so we recorded a first version with also a bass on keyboard, and later Gauthier plays quite good bass, and Gauthier put the bass on the track, which was already finished since more than 1 year. So that's really a combination of like a big jigsaw, if you want. It's like a big jigsaw. You have the pieces on the table, but you have no plan for the jigsaw, and you try to match the pieces all together next to each other.
Of course, there's three keyboard players, as you mentioned. Eric is a guitar player. I found it a very interesting combination with a lot of keyboard synthesizer music, but at the same time also some guitars in it. Was it from the start that it would go that way?
I would say it was really spontaneous. The way that the track finally came out is really spontaneous. But as I told you, Eric is basically a guitar player and a very good guitar player, so he can make very good solos. The inspiration of Eric is David Gilmour and Steve Rothery. So he's really a fan of Pink Floyd and Marillion. So this kind of approach, melodic approach, so no shredding, no speed solos. That's not the point. The point is really to make melodies. But that's really the combination of these different aspects that brings finally the music all together.
That inspiration, it fits well with the music, and that results definitely in really atmospheric, beautiful music. Yeah. So it's a very good combination. I enjoy that. When I saw the cover, I was a bit curious to it, and then I noticed it was a very old radio, and on the Bandcamp site you explained that this old radio kind of gave you the inspiration. And that you were able to create emotions through sound. Something I mentioned in my review is that the world is flooded with video.
Yeah, that's it.
We kind of think in pictures, but there was a time when we didn't have that, when we had the music in our heads and then create the pictures ourselves. So I really like the idea behind that, but. That made me wonder, like, is the album, does it have one theme, or is it just the different songs are different stories?
No, there is not really a theme, but you got it really right. That was really the idea of music appealing to images that you create on your own. And that's why the idea of the radio. The name of the band also, Phonya. Phone is the radical saying also sound. So we really like the idea of music with no words, and so that's instrumental music with no words, that try to generate images for the people. And we liked also, when we saw the radio, which is at Eric's home, we saw the radio, and on an aesthetic point of view, it's a very beautiful object, and we thought, that would be fine on the album, because we didn't want a cover with a picture, with fairy tales, with stars, with moons, and we wanted something which is really simple, really pure. For instance, I really like the covers of Porcupine Tree, for instance, which are very graphic, very simple but very graphic. And I really like the idea and the combination of the cover that you have behind you with the radio and the metronome. We really liked this idea of having something that more appeals to the imagination of the listener.
Yeah, I agree. It's a kind of how do you say it? A kind of calm cover. But it's still intriguing. You're curious what it all is, and like I said, you only see a part of the radio, so that's why initially I thought it was maybe a speaker, but then later I found out it was a radio. So yeah, I think that's a good one. In a way, I really like these lavish prog covers. I would almost say these classic prog covers. But at the same time, I agree with you. What Porcupine Tree does is something I also found very appealing. And well, the same is with your album cover. It makes you curious to what is it, and
that's why the different pictures on the cover, so the back cover, but also the bags with the vinyl on it. These are all images from the radio. So the disco bag, that's really a picture from inside the radio. You can see the dust on the different pieces of the radio, the transistors, on the lamps. You see the dust on it, and we really liked this idea of something, I would say, and vintage and also very natural, I would say, in a certain way.
Speaking about the stories on the album, like you say, the music should create the stories and evoke the emotions with the listener. But I'm kind of thinking you maybe have some story of your own in mind when you wrote the stories. I mean, if I look at the song title "Let Me Out," I would think that there would be something behind that. What is the story behind that?
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Actually, this track was written during the COVID times, and so the basic tracks was written during the COVID times, and the working title of the track was for long Cov 1.3, and we like the idea. So I'm the one who is looking for the title of the track, and I think that the mood of the track, so very more dark, more I would say heavy, was reflecting this kind of pressure that we had when we were during the COVID time, when we had the lockdowns. And so that's why the track is called "Let Me Out." I want to get out. I'm fed up of being locked down. So I really want to get out. And that's why also the track afterward is called "Breathless," because the two tracks are in the same key. So they were composed as separate tracks, but we found out that the tracks were in the same key. So we combined them because they are merged into each other. And "Breathless" is more like a track of the people finally getting out of its home and running breathless, because finally I'm free. So finally I can run, but I run for hours and I'm breathless. So that was the idea of the combination of the two tracks.
It's nice to see that these tracks are linked to each other. I mean, that is something. Yeah, if you don't have a vocalist, if you don't have lyrics, then it's very hard to find that. So
Indeed.
That's why I'm happy that you're telling it, so people watching the interview can now understand a little bit more about how the record is put together. The same song I was a bit curious about was Transhumancy. What was the idea behind that one?
Oh, the idea also, actually, when the track was written, once more, it's an idea from Eric. He put the track together, the first part, and he wrote it to, I would say, 4 minutes of the tracks. But we found out that the track was too short. There was missing something, and so we extended the track a little bit. I think one thing that maybe you did not notice, but there is no cymbals on these tracks for the drums. So if you listen very carefully to the track, there is absolutely no cymbal, but you've got this rolling rhythm, and that the idea came from Gauthier. It's looking really like a transhumance, like a movement where people are moving, are leaving their home, are going for another place, and so we like the idea of transhumance. And I said, but let's put human in evidence, so that what it is written that way it's something about human, about people. So we put it human in evidence, and so that's you have now this weird title of transhuman. See, can pronounce it that way, but that was the idea behind the track.
Yeah, okay. Well, the way you put the track down, the name is definitely something that people will be curious about. So that's a very nice one. Um, on the song Breathless, you already mentioned a little bit what it was about. You have another Ken's Novel musician
Yes.
joining you, Seb Mentior.
Mhm.
It's kind of a
Yep.
small reunion, but yeah, how was he got he involved?
Actually, we were really wondering for a long time, should we had a permanent member on bass? Should we also have a drummer? Because as you know, you heard, so the drums are programmed on the
Yeah.
on the album, which is also maybe one of point that we are thinking about for if we do a second record. But we wanted to have a bass player on some tracks because when you are a real bass player, you have a kind of groove that somebody who plays bass alongside other instruments cannot have. And Seb also is a very good friend of us, so we always kept in touch since years. And so we really wanted to have one extra guest on the album, so that's why we called our friend Seb, who also working on Let Me Out. And on Let Me Out, it gives really this kind of groove that only a bass player can give. It's sometimes not very complicated. It can be simple but straightforward and really put it on groove.
By the way, interesting that you mentioned the drummer because normally that would be something I would notice, but in this case, since it is a very keyboard and synthesizer orientated
Mhm,
album, I don't miss the drummer per se. I mean,
mhm,
normally
mhm,
when it's
mhm,
a
mhm,
real, it's more like a rock band, and they
mhm,
have
mhm.
programmed drums. Then I will like why don't you have a real drummer? But in this case, yeah, I think it's. I mean, you see in behind me, of course, also like Jean Michel Jarre from Jealous. Uh,
Of course, of course.
they don't have drummers as well, but there's still drums in the music. So with that, I kind of yeah appreciate the idea that they do it through the synthesizers. So
Mhm,
that's the
mhm,
same
mhm.
with your music. But I gotta be
But
honest, I would be interested in hearing it with a real drummer.
yeah, actually, we too, really, because this kind of choice, the fact that it's instrumental music and without drummers, is in a certain extent also a choice by default. Because if we want to make music with a singer, it's a very hard work to find a good singer, which is able also to find to write good lyrics that tells a story that is not a love song. That we didn't have interest in that. So we found out also with the music that Eric composed that it makes sense also to keep it instrumental. And concerning the drummer is also we do not have the room where we were. We do not have the room to accommodate a full drummer. So we will have to find a drummer which is able to record its drum on his own and then export the tracks in our system. So we have we have some contact with drummers. We didn't really, I would say, make a final decision for the second album. Maybe what we can do is take a track from the first album and try with a drummer to see what it sounds like, huh? To see if it makes a real difference. But we definitely will consider having a real drummer for the second album.
Oh, that's very promising. I mean,
Mhm.
given what I heard on this album, I'm already looking forward to it because
Yeah,
it's
but
yeah
what we tried also with the drum of the album, we tried also to make them sound natural. So it's not a rhythm, it's not a rhythm box. It's not like a TR 909 from Roland. These are real drum samples. So with the plugins that we use, they are real drum samples which have been really played by drummers. We try also when we put the track to make it so natural, so not too much quantization, and so to fall really on the time. So we try also to make it sound a little bit more natural.
besides old radios, what things inspire you, and or what kind of music do you like to listen to that maybe have an influence on your music?
You know, if I speak on my personal account, I'm really a progressive rock fan. I started to listen prog at the beginning of the 80s when I was 14 years old. I've been influenced by all the major prog artists. If I take now the bands from today, one band which I really like very much is Frost, for instance. This is really a band that I love, of Life Science. I know that you made
Yeah,
a review of the first album of Life Science.
yeah.
These are the type of music that I personally love. And I love melodies, I love harmonies. I'm also a big fan of Porcupine Tree, of course. But of course, we have listened to the old giants like Pink Floyd, yes, Genesis, Mike Oldfield. I'm a very huge fan of Mike Oldfield,
Mm.
Marillion, of course. So these are the things which are influencing me personally. Eric is also quite influenced by Pink Floyd, Marillion. Also, big fan. The both of us big fan of Rush, for instance.
Okay.
But I would say any kind of procs, not really the rock in opposition, for instance, and those that not really my things. I like melodies. I like beautiful melodies. I like beautiful sounds. I like emphasis also the thing which are sounding huge, which is also a contradiction sometimes today because sometimes now the productions are not sounding that huge like it was in the 80s. It's also always a joke with Eric because when I'm playing chords, you say, okay, you are still in the 80s, but that's what I like basically. But Eric also has more affinities also with really sounds. So the way that, for instance, Porcupine Tree or Steven Wilson are working on sounds,
Mm.
really on the sound design, that is something which is really appealing to Eric, for instance.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that that kind of also shines through on the music of Fonya. Um, the whole recording process to put everything together. I mean, did you record your parts individually, or did you all got together and play it, or how did you record the
No,
album?
no, it's really bit by bit. I give you this idea of a jigsaw. It's really bit by bit because we are working with computers, of course, with plugins in computers. So it's really a combination of playing and programming. So we record a piece which can last 10 seconds. We edit it. We see, okay, that's fine. This note should be changed. Okay, now this part, are we happy with it? We place it maybe later in the track. So we these tracks have not been written in one flow. That's impossible. You should listen, for instance, to the demos of each track. You would never recognize the
Mm.
tracks. Let's take the first track, for instance, Evolution. I was attracted directly with the first demos of Eric because of the melodies that were in it and that are finally in the program in the final track. But the demo was very short and the sound was totally different. So that's not a continuous process. This really a bits by bits process. And I would say the most difficult things is to say, okay, now we stop. Now we want to add one more thing. On my side, I sometimes say, this part of the track is so nice. We should repeat it again later in the track. But sometimes you have to stop, and you have to draw the line somewhere, and on at a time, it makes sense. It fits in one piece, and we leave it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting I'm picturing a jigsaw and with all the music pieces.
Mhm.
Yeah, but still, despite the kind of music and especially also yeah the length of the songs, I was a bit surprised to see that you put out it on vinyl, not on
Mhm.
CD,
Mhm.
and that
Mhm.
you managed to put 27 minutes
Yes.
of music on one side. I didn't know that
Mhm.
was possible.
We
But
didn't know either. Actually, we didn't know either. So maybe first the idea of the vinyl. Actually, like many guys of my age, I'm from the CD generation. Huh? So I started to buy music on some vinyls, and then the CD arrived in the mid '80s, and I wanted to replace all my vinyls with CDs. And 2 years ago, I was offered a turntable. And I realized that I had still I would say 100 vinyls,
okay.
and I took them from the bottom of the house, and I realized that I had some good vinyls, and I fell in love again with with this object, and also with the ritual of the object of taking it out of the cover, placing it on the turntable, cleaning it, and I really love that. And since now 2 years, I'm going in vinyl fairs. I've bought, I would say, nearly 200 vinyls again. And when we started recording with Eric, because Eric made also the same way, the same route, I would say, we say, oh, for the fun, we should put it on vinyl. What do you think? Oh, that would be fine. Okay, so we put it on vinyl. So we made 200 copies. We find a very good companies in Belgium which was able to print the vinyl at a very reasonable price. So we decided to do it. Now comes the question of the CD. Actually, we haven't decided yet. We do not exclude it to put it on CD, but that's an extra investment, and it's a full auto production, self-productions. So we have no label, we have no distribution deal, so we all sell it by our own. So it means that putting extra effort in the sale of the CD, so I'm not sure yet, but the good point, I think, is that with the tools that we have now, and especially with Bandcamp, you can reach a large public without too much effort, and which is on a way which is not very expensive. Just to give you a comparison, when we recorded the first album of Ken's novel, it was in 1998 that we recorded. The recording of the album costed us at that time 10,000 euros at that time. So that take it from the inflation and what it should cost now.
Yeah.
And here the recording time costs us nothing because we do that at Eric's home. So we only had to pay for the realization of the vinyls.
Ah, okay. Yeah. I see. Okay. But you put it on Bandcamp indeed, which is very good. It's not on streaming services.
No, not so far. And I think then it's a question of organization. But we put it on YouTube. So we made a YouTube channel because we took some information to see what we should do. And it appears that it seems that YouTube is the first source for listening music online, before Spotify, before the Deezers. So of course we don't want to make a living with the music. That's really not the point. But we haven't made the decision of putting it in Spotify. We could do it. It's not excluded. And we think also that the album, we hope we have quite a long-lasting period because it's a small production, so it will come regularly through reviews also. So maybe in 6 months, people will still hear about the music. So maybe we will put it later. But that's why we decided we wanted to have on YouTube, to have also another means of listening to the music besides Bandcamp, because Bandcamp is not very familiar for everybody, more familiar for musicians, of course. But so we wanted to have it on YouTube, but we haven't decided so far to put it on Spotify, on Deezer, or other streaming services.
I'm always curious what reasons might be, and I gotta be honest. There was a comment of someone. I think it was on my review who mentioned that it was like on Bandcamp, not on streaming, but it is on YouTube. So he was curious. I thought it is a good question, so that's why I definitely wanted to ask it. There's one last thing I'm very curious to. Is there a chance Phonya will ever be playing live?
I don't think so. I don't think so, and for different reasons. We are, as I told you, we are all, Gauthier, Eric and I, we are quite busy on a professional level. So playing live needs a lot of time and dedication. We have also limited time available to make music. So it means that should we play live, so it means that the time that we have, we should dedicate it to arranging the tracks to be played live. So that's a time that we will not dedicate to the writing of new music. And also, I think that the effort of bringing live with the same level of arrangements that we have on the record would be very difficult and would be very challenging. And also to play in good technical conditions, because that's the point. That's the kind of music that you cannot play at the bottom of a cafe. You cannot play in a pub with this kind of music. So I think that music itself may not be also very appealing for organizers of concerts, of live gigs. So I know that Eric, for instance, Eric and Gauthier would be maybe more keen to work on a live setup. I personally, I'm not really. We will see, but I don't think that there is a chance to see us play live, to see us play these tracks live. I don't think so.
Yeah. I understand. It's a lot of things get involved then. So, but fortunately, it is on vinyl. You can listen to it on vinyl. We can listen to it on Bandcamp and on YouTube, which is very good. So, well, I want to thank you for your time and
My
for
pleasure, Marcel.
telling us
Thank
a
you.
little bit, a lot more about Phonya, the backgrounds and everything. It was very nice. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for your interest in GD.